Hi, how you doing, everybody? Welcome to our next virtual chat, where we're delighted to have Calum from DiscoReptile join us today. So, both teams, I think we're both in Scotland. Is that correct? Virtually connecting.
We
You're
are
Scotland?
indeed.
Yeah, we are. So that's good. Different cities, but in both in Scotland. So, welcome and thank you
Sure.
for joining us on this lovely sunny afternoon. We're just going to have a catch up, quite a casual conversation, really, with Calum, who was part of DiscoReptile in the 2019 cohort of Tranzfuser. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened with Calum over the last year or so, his journey on Tranzfuser, and also to kind of rewind a little bit further back and just talk a little bit about some of the stuff that shaped him and has informed his journey that he's been on today. So without further ado, thank you very much, Calum, for joining us. Very much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. What I'd love to first of all ask you about, tell us a little bit about, if we can rewind back to maybe a couple of years ago, maybe, what's kind of informed and shaped your journey and kind of got you started on this whole kind of road of games development.
Of games development. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Because the road of game development and the road of Elphame are a little bit different.
Okay.
Game development, games were just sort of the first thing that really fascinated me. You could say earlier on it might have been cartoons or something, but games were something that I sort of immediately wanted to make. Even like as soon as I discovered like the paint program on a very old Mac that we had, I was like trying to make like graphics in it. So I guess you could call that, no, you couldn't call it pixel art. But the point is that I was always trying to like make graphics and things that I thought would make a game. It wasn't until years later that I discovered Game Maker in its sort of early stages. And it was then that I started just sort of making little experimental, I guess you could call them games, but they were mainly just little toys sort of thing. Like they would do one function and you would try and get a high score. And I just started making those. Sometimes like there was a whole week once where I would just, after school, I would just make a new game, upload it onto my WordPress and leave it there for everyone to enjoy. By everyone I mean the odd visitor that found my blog by accident. But after that, it was a couple of years that I stopped to learn animation, which was actually how I found Tranzfuser, because I was making a short animation in university about the same characters that now star in Elphame, and I really wanted to make it into a game. I really wanted to use the graphics and make that into a game. And that animation was finished about a year and a month ago today. And it was really just I wanted to make something that I could be proud of with those characters. The characters that are in Elphame are ones that have been with me for a really long time. But to answer your initial question, how I got on this path was someone in another class told me about Tranzfuser, and they told me that they were not doing it anymore. And I realized that no one from our uni was going to submit, and I thought that's a waste. So I got the team together, and we applied with the same sort of concept as that animation. And I decided then that I would be getting back into games development for the first time in maybe 2 years.
Okay, so what were you studying at uni? I take it wasn't a games related course, computer sciences. Was it the animation route, or what was the route that you were doing?
It was digital animation, I
Okay.
believe they worded it as. And the good thing about that was I came in as a 3D animator, because that's what I learned at college and in my spare time before college. But the good thing about digital animation is it takes many forms, and as of sort of that time, I was really interested in pixel art, and all the sort of artists that I admired at the time were either sort of really high end stylized 3D artists or pixel artists. So I decided to sort of learn pixel art over my last year,
Okay.
and yeah, that ended up helping me towards the sort of graphic side of the game that I'm working on now.
Cool. That's excellent. I mean, it's really interesting that it wasn't something that you had initially intended until like one of your colleagues or your university colleagues had mentioned about Transfuser to you and had spoken. It's interesting from our perspective in terms of how the word gets out and how whenever you're in that state of beginning to do an application. I know it's certainly something that when we're beginning to engage people in that process of the application is encouraging them to get their application in, because a lot of them are like, oh no, we can't, maybe it's lacking confidence, or maybe think, oh, maybe don't have all the team, or maybe my project's not good enough, whatever. There's lots of things that go around people's mind. But it's really interesting to hear you saying, oh, this is a wasted opportunity, we need to have somebody represent our uni here. And lo and behold, your application more than met the baseline of Tranzfuser applications, and you guys got through. So that's it's fantastic that you pursued that opportunity and did that. So tell us about your team. How did you get everybody together for that? Was that something that was difficult, or was it colleagues from uni or elsewhere? How did you put everybody together for your application?
It was difficult. We actually we realized that this realization of nobody else from our uni is applying What a Waste was made 3 days before the application deadline.
Okay. Nothing like cutting it fine.
Absolutely nothing like a quick deadline to get the brain working. But yeah, like me and our current artist and musician and all many wonderful things, Michael, had been talking for a while of doing something like some kind of artistic project together. Before we wanted to try selling our art at cons. I think was the go-to one. We were really excited about doing that, but we realized that you kind of have to be you kind of have to be like really aware of all the conventions that have art stalls that are available to the, like, when there was a con that we were going to go to and sell our art, and we messaged them and said, hey, is there still tables available for this? And they said, well, actually, we advertised that months ago, and they all filled up the day that we said that they were coming out. And I just said to Michael, let's give up. So we did that, and this came up, and I said, Michael, do you want to do like promo art for this game that I'm just now thinking of submitting to this? We need a team for it to submit. Would you be interested? And pondered over for a bit and just thought, what the heck, to put it politely. And we applied we started applying, the two of us, and then we realized, wait, hold on, we need 4 people minimum. So We then got on board our friend Iffa, who was actually the one who told us about Tranzfuser initially. She and I were on the same game development team earlier on that year. Not at the same time, mind you. She said, "This is too much for me right now. Can you do it instead?" So I took her place. They were going to apply to Tranzfuser that year, but then decided against it. So we both agreed that, you know, this is definitely worth checking out. So that was 3. And one of our classes we shared, well, a couple of our classes actually throughout the years, we shared with the games development class. And I knew someone, I think we first met at Comic-Con, but his name's James, and he was a programmer. And I said, "Hey, like, would you like be a sort of secondary program? I would do most of the programming. You would like help me out if I needed something, sort of thing." He said, "Sure." And then we had 4.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't want to go on once we were ironically once we were successful with the once we'd won at EGX.
Yeah.
He said, like, "Oh, well, I want to focus on other things." Sure.
Yeah.
So then we got our contractor, our translator, our Japanese translator, Jonathan, in, and that has been the team ever since.
Oh, great. It's great. So in terms of like the
does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's, you know, I think it's something that, you know, our transfuser teams, you know, they do face, and a number of them do face, because some of them, you know, come out of university and they have, you know, teams, or they have a project perhaps that they've been working on for maybe 6 months or something, was part of a coursework, and they're like, okay, let's use this as, you know, as our IP, our game IP, to enter the transfuser. You know, some of them are like yourself, or somebody who has an idea and they've been pondering it for a long time, and it's been something that it's been there, but they just need that kind of the next stage to take it on to the next thing. And then others are applying, and it's a completely new idea with a completely new team. And so it's, you know, everything in between that we have in terms of teams and in terms of IP as well. So there's not I wouldn't say that there's there's not a formula in terms of, you know, if we apply with this team, then you know, enter into the success for us. And we have various different ebbs and flows with what happens with teams during the course of Tranzfuser. But, you know, I think it's always, you know, it's interesting to hear how people get their teams together and their story, and how it's kind of how that kind of starts, and how it kind of impacts you know, impacts their kind of their journey and where they end up. So in terms of, you know, if I not wanting to go and kind of leap ahead, but kind of sitting there where you are now, and hearing your story in terms of, you were thinking about, you know, trying to sell your wares elsewhere and get your artwork, you know, through another channel. You know, when you had done, you know, when you had put your application in for Tranzfuser, had you ever expected to be sitting in the place that you are now? You know, just thinking from when, at that point when you're putting your application in, you've got a very tight deadline to put it round. And that's not something, just can I just clarify here, that we would, you know, recommend people do, but it occasionally does happen. So, but, you know, in terms of that, you know, would you have ever, you know, did the events of Tranzfuser kind of lead to you to being where you are, or would they have happened anyway, whether you'd participated or not?
So, sorry, are you asking if I expected the result that I got now, or?
Yeah, sitting
okay.
where you are now and talking about kind of looking at your application and putting it in, and thinking, okay, so you were selected for funding, and then and where you are now, and what's happened with your game. Do you think it would have? Do you think it would have happened that way anyway, or do you think it's helped and supported and impact?
I cannot put it bluntly enough. Tranzfuser is the sole reason any of this has happened. Like there's no way I would have expected any of this. I like, well, okay. At first, I was expecting, we'll get a bit of like paid work from this. We'll get to meet a couple of other, like, all of, like, we'll get to make new friends. We'll develop our skill set a little bit, all of which did happen. But by no means did I expect, like, I'm looking at my Steam page right now, and I did not, it's the Steam store page right now, and I never expected it to get as serious as that when I applied. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much, yeah. That's a great answer as far as I'm concerned. So okay, so let's not go too far ahead. So you put your application on. You guys have been successfully accepted onto Tranzfuser. Tell us a little bit about some of the high points of Tranzfuser, the things that you guys really enjoy. Tell us some about the challenges that you experienced, as you participated and during the course of the competition or program. Let's put it that way.
Oh gosh. Okay, high points, low points. High points was always like getting together with the team, having a chat about how the game was going, having a discussion of the story, talking with Michael about artistic direction, talking to Effa about marketing direction. All that was great. Just everything that involved like hanging out with the team, having meetings was fantastic. The low points, well, actually, the highest points and the lowest points were probably at EGX itself. Um, a lot of people who come to EGX, and I know it'll be a sort of different situation this year, but it's very exhausting to be at a convention for so long and stand for a long time, and Michael will agree with me that we argued a lot. We were just. In fact, at some points, the whole team was kind of at each other's throats a little bit. Just it was very stressful.
Yeah,
but it was very rewarding. It was all
very high intensity. Very high intensity.
High intensity.
Sure.
But just very, very worth it, because we got to see people enjoying our game. We got to see what people enjoyed about our game. I don't think we ever had such a huge sort of testing pool of people, not only for testing the game, but for sort of reacting to our art assets. We got to see what people really liked, like some of the Beasties designs. People really enjoyed those. Other people, like, had preferences as to what they wanted the gameplay to be like. But some of the opinions were sort of contradictory of others, and we had to sort of decide which to disregard. But this is still the high parts. This is all still good. Just the fact that we even got far enough to get so much feedback is amazing. I don't think we ever thought that would happen. And with a high, I don't think there were any other low points. I think it just the stress of deadlines. Actually, stress of deadlines was sometimes good and sometimes bad. It was good because I know a lot of others will agree with me. It's a lot easier to work with a deadline than it is to just get it out whenever, biggest advice I can give to teams this year is give yourself deadlines and stick to them.
Yeah, that is an extremely good piece of advice. That's for sure. That's yeah. In terms of like your team, how did you? I mean, were you all? Did you all? Were you all? I mean, it's again, like we said, it's probably going to be slightly different this year, just in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on things. But were you all based at your local hub, or were some of you working remotely? And just in terms of practical tools for managing the team and making sure that everybody was communicating well and that kind of stuff. What kind of stuff? Did you have anything in place? Did you have any tools that you use or that you could kind of recommend? In helping you, I suppose, achieve your deadlines, as it were.
For a while, and simply put, we worked remotely almost entirely. We would just like, I would just say, hey, we need such and such from you and you, and I would just check in throughout the week as to how that was going. And for a while we were doing group calls online, and that would happen before the start of each week, just to sort of brief the team on what was going on. I don't know, for a couple of uni students who are used to doing most of their work at home, it's not really that much of a change.
Yeah.
The change is when we actually did go in to meet each other, and our local hub was very accommodating. They stressed several times, anything you guys need us to do to make the whole sort of journey a little easier. I believe we're looking into very, very softly prodding into the potential of getting like an office that are an incubator, they called it, like a small office for us. But I'm not sure if we feel the need for it. Yeah. I think it's very possible to do to do the whole game remotely.
Yeah, well, it's encouraging to hear. That's for sure.
yeah. And at this time when that's basically the only choice this year's team has, I think it's encouraging to know that. I think a lot. I spoke to the other teams, and I think that's generally the situation. You work from home.
Yeah.
Not much has changed.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Excellent. So you guys have kind of participated on EGX, and then you find out that you have been selected for funding. Tell us a little bit about how you felt about that, and how what kind of happened next, and how your team responded, and what happened after that.
The joy was very gradual. When we got that first email, it was worded in such a way that I was actually quite confused about what had happened.
Right.
It was obviously, for business reasons, it wasn't "you have won" in full caps. Yeah. It was something along the lines of "you have been," there was an adjective, and then "selected for additional funding." Yeah. And we were, and I immediately phoned Michael. Phoned Michael, and I was just like, I'm going to read this to you word for word. Okay? I'm going to need a second opinion on this. Immediately phoned Michael, and he was immediately in celebration, but I was just like, I don't know about that. We were because it was like, it was almost as if there was another stage of the competition in my eyes. I like to think that I'm a pessimist, and I just assumed that it was just like, don't get your hopes up yet, Calum. There's another thing that needs done here. We don't know what's happening. We'll just wait until this call that we're doing afterwards to clarify, and then we had the call, and then we celebrated.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, I'm glad there was some celebration.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, you've had your celebration. What's happened since? I mean, it's been 8 months now. What's happened since you've done that, and what's changed, or if anything?
The name's changed. We came to EGX and applied with the name Hypochondronomicon, as in hypochondria plus Necronomicon, which was a sort of vital artifact in the game's story. It was a magical book that was sort of pivotal to the plot, but at EGX we found that certain people struggled with the name. Some people were like, "Oh, brilliant!" Like people got it immediately, but that was like 1 in 10. We don't want to be exclusive. We don't want to. We don't want to. I think it's we were kind of that was actually the most difficult sort of artistic change to make. I really liked the name. If I recall, Michael was a big fan as well. But it was when after we celebrated, we decided to get Jonathan, our current Japanese translator, in, and he said, if we want this to do well in Japan, the name Hypochondronomicon is complete nonsense. People are aware of the Necronomicon in Japan, but not as it's not as prominent as over here or in English speaking world. And I just thought, whatever. I'm not like it's. I'm over it. We can change it. Change it to the name of the setting. Change it to the name of the world that it is set in, Elphame, and get the old title out of my sight.
So did you? I mean,
what else has changed?
Yeah. In terms of that, how did because you had built up some like kind of community in terms of like, you had a Patreon going, is that right? And some other bits and pieces that you were doing. How did your kind of, staunch community kind of respond to the change, or were they kind of like, all right, okay, we get it?
It was generally positive. We've only recently revealed the change, and we did it sort of quite subtly over the course of we've been putting out YouTube videos at least every month with sort of big updates, and I established a while ago that the setting was called Elphame, but in all of the recent videos I never referred to the game's name, but in each of the titles I had, like, I think the first one of the format was called Exploring Elphame, and when you read that you just think, okay, you're in Hypochondronomicon exploring the world that it is set in. And the next one was like Beasties of Elphame. It's like, okay, these are the creatures that inhabit the world. But in the most recent one, in the most recent big update video, I just outright titled it "The Game's Called It Elphame," and I was like, hey, just like see the last couple of videos. I've been very sneaky. I'm patting myself on the back here.
Yeah.
So generally that went down well, but I don't. I don't know where I'm going.
It's just been pretty positive. So, well, that's cool. So, cool, excellent. So, any other changes, or is that been the major thing that's happened since your funding? Obviously, launched the game. How much time did it take to get to where it is? And I suppose what are you planning to do next? So it is where it is. How much time did it take you? And then now that you're here, what's your plans for the next steps?
Well, we launched the demo, not the full game, but the plans are what changed is there's now far more of a sort of presentable. There's more. It looks more like a game now. The last one kind of looked like a tech demo, but there's more of an accessible UI now, and there's large portraits of the characters when they're talking instead of speech bubbles over the in-game models. But what's next is we're right now. I'm planning out the story and the sort of world map, and I'm planning it out in levels, and I plan to create those one at a time and then move on to the next one, and make sure that I don't waste time going back changing things, because I'll do that forever. I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the plans for the future is just hopefully get all the levels and the game published by the end of 2020.
Okay, brilliant. Sounds awesome. I know that we're certainly very much looking forward to doing that. I think I probably just got really one more question in terms of just kind of wrapping up a little bit in terms of the conversation. Sure. You and Bartek are going to go on in a minute. We'll take a wee short break and actually give our viewers the opportunity to go and have a look at the game and walk through it in terms of some pointers with that. So it'll be really, really nice to see it and see your wonderful pixel art as well. But so in terms of what advice would you give our next cohort of transfuser teams? What one word of wisdom would you give them?
One word?
Yeah. Or you can maybe have a few more, Calum.
Persist.
Okay. Good, like it. Persist. That's a great word. I think that's good.
Yeah. Well, if you want more, then I'll double down on my last one. Set yourself deadlines and stick to them.
Okay. Good. Excellent. Well, Calum, thank you so much for that. I could have sat here all afternoon and just heard your story and talked more about what's going on with your development, and it's really interesting, and hopefully we'll hear a bit more about perhaps in your stream with Bartek. You can tell us a little bit about the story and the world, and
of course,
all that kind of stuff. We were going to talk a little bit about that, but we've run out of time. So if you can talk that through with Bartek, that would be great. And just to hear it's super interesting, and it's really engaging. So thank you so much for your time, and as Calum has said, persist and set yourself some good deadlines. And it's been great. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you with our next alumni update.
Okay, all right. Bye-bye.
Hello, and we are back on. This is Bartek talking to you, and I'm here once again with Calum, and we're gonna be playing through his and his team's amazing game called Elphame. Oh, I can hear myself on my phone. Here we are. Did you enjoy the interview? How are you feeling after?
I'm fine, but my throat's a bit sore.
Oh, you can grab some water at some point if you would like. So we're gonna jump right into the game, and let's play the intro and see what the lore of the game has to offer for us. So
should I talk over this?
You can talk over it. You can tell us what we are looking at. I'm just letting people read what's on the screen. But go ahead if you got some additional information on the story. Go for it.
Information is supposed to be very mysterious and uninformative. The intro is, at least, because I wanted people to be curious as to what our sort of protagonist here did before the events of the game. But I think very few people have voiced their curiosity on the matter, and I don't know if it's that important.
I see. So where did the idea for the story... Is the guy with yellow hair the main antagonist? Because I know the game used to have many playable characters back at EGX.
Antagonists? No. He's a.
Or
he's a
sorry,
little stinker sometimes,
I meant
but,
protagonist.
Protagonist? Gosh, I'm trying my best to sort of split the importance equally between the main 4 characters, but it's becoming a little bit difficult. Like you have to list them in a certain order. You can't. There's no way that I can list all of them. And our artist is in the chat. Evil 8 Ball did the portraits that you're seeing on screen right now.
I see.
And the background behind them.
I see. Evil 8 Ball, hello and welcome.
Yeah, I suppose you could probably call Darren our main protagonist. He's the one on the left. I know they've not said their names yet, but I think everyone that I have shown this stream is already aware of that.
I see. The way they are talking reminds me of I forgot the name of the game, but there was that game where they used a similar way of doing speech, and I think it's a very smart way of doing that.
It's quite common.
I agree.
Visual novel style games. I'm trying to think. It was probably Animal Crossing that gave me the idea.
I see. I think in Animal Crossing they do it much more high-pitched, if I can remember.
And also they say specific letters, like if like they'll spell out what they're saying, or the sounds of what they're saying. But in this, that would literally be impossible unless I slowed the text speed way down. And because the game runs at 10 frames per second, and it's the text goes by at 2 characters per frame, so it would sound horrible if I made them actually make the sounds of the letters.
I see. It would sound a bit like a horror tape, you know, like distorted.
And awful. It would sound awful.
Oh, it's such a sunny day today. Perfect to play some Elphame. We're presented with some. We are presented with the tutorial, sort of telling me how to play the game, and this is where to me the real fun starts. Because the way the combat in this game works, I'll let you touch on that a bit more, but I think the combat is very innovative, or at least I haven't come across this sort of solution before. Very similar ones, but in this game you can actually create a queue of moves which then plays out, and you just watch your character take action in the combat, and I think it's very interesting. Do you want to sort of touch on that, how it came to be?
Sure. Well, I should also note that there is now an actual tutorial that will be offered to you as you start the game. But I suppose I often cite that Plants vs. Zombies Heroes was the biggest source of inspiration, because in that game, it's a card game, but you have your plants, or you have your minions on the bottom row, and your opponent's minions on the top row. And as soon as you hit that fight button, you can see from how they're lined up, how the battle is going to unfold.
I see.
So I thought that'd be awesome if I could make that into a sort of RPG style single player game.
I see. Okay. So the inspiration was Plants vs Zombies. Were you considering titles such as Pokemon when making the game? Because it obviously strikes me that I mean it's a very common solution to combat, at least from the older games that I know, to have sort of you approach the enemy on the map and then the screen changes to this sort of battle mode. So have you considered Pokemon at all, or was that not on your mind?
Absolutely is on my mind. There's I purchased a strategy guide for Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, and I'd already completed the game, but I wanted it for, first of all, for the poster of the map, and secondly, there are pages and pages of every move in the Pokemon games to that date.
I see.
And I got some of the ideas of the skills that the heroes use in combat from that strategy guide.
I see. So you almost like studied that mechanic and sort of developed your own stuff based on the knowledge you had, which is, I mean, it's great. It's very smart.
Thank you.
Also, something I'm noticing as I'm playing the game, as I'm moving around, there is actually a limited amount of steps I can take to walk around. Does that reset after battle, or what's the concept behind that? How does that affect the gameplay for me?
So in the final game, in final levels, and even in this demo, when the level begins, you're given a limited quantity of moves, so that you can. Well, it's basically just to prevent you. Oh.
Yeah, in every game you have to jump into lava to test if you die. So this was me testing what happens if I do that. Don't do that. If you wanna win the battle, don't do what I did.
Make the on-screen instructions clearer. But the point of this is to sort of learn Nora's bread and butter combo, Cam and Jet. Twice in a row. There's also an inspect button, which is sort of neither here nor there, considering it tells you exactly what to do. But wait, what did you ask before? What did you ask before I started talking about this?
Oh, right. My question was about the time left. Top left corner.
Of course.
Yeah, we got currently 34 moves. So how does that affect the gameplay? Should I be wary of that? Should I not be doing this?
If you run out of moves, that's as bad as dying. It's game over. It's basically it's to stop players just completely spamming there was a berry on the screen to the north, and what that does is heals you. So if you had unlimited moves, there would be no consequence for losing battle, because you could just walk back to the berry and heal yourself to full, and give yourself carpal tunnel from pressing the buttons so much.
I see. Yeah, I think I can avoid the damaging my hands, considering how much I've been gaming during the quarantine. But I get the idea. I think
what they call it.
I think it's a smart way to sort of prevent player from almost like abusing the healing mechanic, you know. So you sort of implement one mechanic and then the other one to balance it out.
Evil is saying and some music and creature/beastie designs.
Yeah, that's evil.
I always look at this design here. The Boobray is one of Michael's favorites. It's one that he designed himself, and I really like it.
Yeah, I think it's nice. I think the animations are quite subtle, but they work very nicely. But I'm still the fun fact for the viewers. This character that is being showcased to us at the moment was actually the character I picked back at EGX to play through the game. And I was just discussing with Calum before we started off. There was I'm not sure if it was tutorial stage, but at some point I was fighting a dummy, right? And this character has an ability which takes away my health. And it wasn't something I was aware of. So during the tutorial, when I was practicing on the dummy, I was shocked when I realized that the dummy can hit you back. But no, it was just the character who takes away some health.
I'm glad I finally addressed that.
It's been quite a few months, but we got to the bottom of it.
This sort of plot point here is also deliberately mysterious. Darren has been sent to this world by someone. Jack is just as confused as these events unfolding as the viewer is. But but sometimes the heroes will fight each other.
That is very cool. I think it really breaks the... It's not what you would expect, which I think to me is great. Oftentimes when I'm watching movies and such, I can predict the plot, but when I cannot, that's when I have the most fun watching it or experiencing a game, because it's unexpected, you know, it creates curiosity in the player, and it's just great. So we want to start with armor. Do I want to repeat these, or let's go like this and start? Honestly though, the combat, it's so fun. It's so fun.
Oh, thanks for saying so.
You can really be creative with it. I think I at least I would hope so, as the game develops in terms of time put into it. You know.
There's some sort of limitations that we have to abide by, like we can never have. It would be far too confusing for the player to take in. For example, in a lot of games like this, you have minions or like another creature that you can summon that can fight for you, but that sort of thing just can't really function in a battle style like this. So that sort of cuts a lot of our options off. And, there's some concepts that we've considered putting in that would just be entirely too confusing, and perhaps the worst part is that all of the skill descriptions have to fit on 2 lines. And first of all for simplicity, and second of all for uniformity. It's like, we don't want people scrolling through the skills and seeing one skill that says arm a bomb. When a bomb is armed twice, deal 5 damage. If it's been armed more than once within the same turn, deal 7 damage instead. And then the next one is just 2 damage, full stop. We need to make some kind of uniformity. Oh, who are you going to pick?
So I played Raven back at EGX, but at the moment I'm leaning towards Jack. I really like the miniature look of Jack. I think it's a very cool design. And something I noticed during when the characters were talking, they actually have different pitches, and sort of their speech sounds different, even though it's, essentially, like Sims talking, but it's actually, you can differentiate between the characters despite that, which is very cool. I noticed that the most when I heard Raven talk, because his speech is obviously made into a bit of more of a spooky one,
Yeah, it's quite grating to hear.
And to touch on what you said about the mechanics, I think you are definitely correct on most part, and I think because you have like few abilities, but they are very simple, I think the fact that you can combine them is what makes it the sort of thing which is easy to start off, but like hard to master, which is very good in games. At least for me, I find it a good approach, healthy for the game, I think.
Thank you for saying so.
That might just be my.
Handerwood said
It's just my personal approach, at least.
the speech is a bit Animal Crossing like. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is.
We were discussing it earlier, and yeah, that was a big inspiration.
So
you already know most of this.
Yeah, it's just for anyone who's not aware what's going on. Here is some information on the on what we're gonna be looking at on the screen. So here it explains. So use the arrow keys to move around the map. You have limited amount of moves. So it clearly underlines that, makes the player aware. Don't move too much.
Yeah. If you have a certain amount, if you're below a certain amount of moves, there's on-map dialogue now. We added that very recently.
I see. Is there a way for me to open the map? Sorry, I didn't see.
What do you mean by open the map? You're on the map? Well, you were on the map.
Okay, never mind. I was wondering if there is like a way for me to open a window and see all the different sections which I went through, almost like the Binding of Isaac, where you see where you are in relation to the previous areas.
Sort of in the bottom right of the screen. Well, I'll show you when we're back on the overworld.
Okay. So the gear up ability takes away a lot of my move points, perhaps. It uses.
I was
two,
interested
in
in how you were going to word that. We internally call it energy, but I think it's only explicitly referred to as energy once.
I think with that you have to consider the kinds of characters you have as well, probably as a developer, because energy for one might be fine, but then for like Raven, if you had something like, maybe not Raven, but the wizard lady, I forgot her name. For her, you probably would like something like mana, etc. So finding that the name, which
is so interesting. That are you being funny, or do you
No,
do you already know that there's mana, or
No. I was being honest. No. I didn't know.
Oh my gosh! Okay, it's funny because Nora uses both energy and mana.
I mean, no, in the tutorial she did have mana, but I was just thinking how you call the energy, and then I was just thinking how you have to think of all the characters when naming these sort of resources,
You know something? I've actually never considered it, but you've just given me an idea. I could potentially have all of Nora's skills be free in terms of energy, but she still has to generate the mana.
Perhaps. There you go. You're welcome.
It could cost different amounts of mana. There you go. Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate some ideas being taken on board, given that I'll be soon going into my third year of game design studies, so...
Ooh, how exciting.
Exciting. It's honestly so valuable to watch the interviews from UK Games Fund with all of the indie devs and everyone who went through Tranzfuser, because you can learn so much from that. There is so much to be absorbed through someone else's experience,
I love watching interviews of general creatives as well. I highly recommend using the inspect button on this occasion before you make a grave mistake.
Inspect. Oh, okay. Enemy skills. Let's see. Disability. If Bark is used 3 times, the hero takes 10 damage. Oh, so I need to finish this guy in 3 turns, essentially.
Before 3 turns, in 2 turns, yes.
In 2 turns. Okay, so his ability doesn't heal him.
Doesn't at all, I'm afraid. But steel is still good because it deals 2 damage.
Okay, but my armor blocks the next attack.
Very true.
So
You
I can place the gear up as the last attack.
That is correct, yes.
And this way I'm essentially invincible against this enemy.
I shouldn't be giving clues.
No, it's all me. I'm joking, thank you so much. Right, let's see. There we go. Okay, let's hope for the best. Here we go. We get the armor, block the attack twice, block the next attack twice, block this one as well.
Okay.
Here we go. Very nice. That's what I'm saying about being creative in this game. Like, I could have either finished him quickly if I was perhaps a more offensive character, whereas on this one I have ways of shielding myself and just prolonging the fight for my betterment.
Yeah. So in the bottom right there is a map.
Yeah, I see it now. That's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah. I think something that I need to keep the eye on my moves, because I think I'm spamming them a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, because just now I'm walking around enjoying the gameplay, of course, but in terms of the end game goal or sort of progression, what can players expect from the game?
So we intend to have sort of like a level system, almost like how the levels worked in Warcraft 3, and there's so there's sort of one mission that you have from the start, and there is one map that is unique to that mission that you have to move around on and finish your mission within the move limit. So the move limit is like the sun is going down, you don't want to see what happens at night here.
I see.
Sort of thing. It's like Pikmin, because in that game you had until the sun went down, because everything that was sleeping in the overworld will wake up and start hunting you.
I see.
But of course, you'll have long left by then. I suppose the difference is in Pikmin, if you ran out of time, you would just the day would end and you would suffer the consequences. But in you nearly missed a shell. I got it. But in this game, it's an immediate game over. Just generally, it's not like. I think after a couple of plays, most people will know, will sort of work around the move count first and foremost.
I see. I'm really enjoying the game. The gameplay is so nice. Guys, everyone watching, you should really check the game out on Steam. It's Elphame on Steam. It's really nice.
Thank you.
No, honestly, I think you really nailed the combat. I'm really enjoying it. I might be biased because of the gaming background that I got. I'm not sure how... I mean, everyone has their preference, of course, but I find it very intuitive and quite fun.
Thank you. You're very low on health now.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to advise you. You should definitely go south, though. Definitely go south and try and. Okay. I was too late.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Right. Let's see if I go this way. Calum, I went places, Calum.
You're using your moves very liberally, but I think I'm not actually certain if it is possible for the game, the demo, to be won at this low amount of moves.
Oh, I see. Well, you know what? My goal is to attract audience to your game, not to beat it, you know, so...
Exactly.
I'm doing my job
People
here.
will try it themselves.
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure I've built up plenty of interest. I mean, let's see if I can beat this enemy. So, I think the using inspect is extremely important. Extremely important. Because, for example, if I didn't expect that, the wolf enemy, I don't think I would have survived. Because it seems like just one simple attack, but then in third round, all of a sudden, your health is gone.
Exactly. You can't survive 10 damage.
Let's see. Any advice for this enemy?
Well, it'll only that first attack. Obviously, if I've not taken any damage as a condition, so it won't even trigger if you manage to get a hit in either your first or second slot. So if you use steal or pinch before then, that will block that. And also, if you put gear up in the very last slot, you won't take any damage. So if you attack it before it uses any skills and use gear up last, you will take no damage. In fact, if you do well, you might even heal from it.
You definitely have the knowledge of a developer, you know, all the ins and outs. I'm still trying to learn, but I think I'm doing pretty well. Let's see. So, we definitely want to start it off by just giving him a small pinch. I'm also noticing the attacks are numbered left to right, so you can clearly see how it goes. From left, 1, 2, 3, 4, so it sort of goes back and forth.
I'm still I'm kind of in two minds about that as well, because if people refer to slot 2, people might think that you're referring to your hero's second skill slot, but it's actually the enemy's first. So, perfect. No, you're doing great. I think that will kill him.
Okay, let's see what I have created.
Oh no!
Wait a second.
You
Okay,
had it.
okay,
You had it.
right.
Yes.
So can I heal from this? Oh, I can't. I suppose I cannot cross the water.
No.
Okay,
but
that's very smart. As I'm trying to move up, it doesn't actually use up my moves. Bless the programming of that. Oh, and I'm out of here. Oh, I see. I think once I run out of moves, we're gonna call it a day to keep on our schedule.
Yeah.
Task
Well,
failed. Out of moves. Tip: while most
You
encounters
didn't-
are avoidable, some will save you from running out of moves. Don't fear the battles; they are very fun. Engage in them. Elphame.
Oh well.
It's a great title, and so is the game. When should we expect it on Steam? Give us all the all the exciting news.
Aiming for before 2021, but considering we're halfway through 2020, expect delays. So our first half of 2021 at the latest, I think.
Okay. 2021, Elphame, global top 1 game on Steam.
Oh, thanks. Cheers. Thanks for making sure that it's the #1 game.
Of course. Right, thank you so much for carrying me through the gameplay of your game. Any
To your death.
No, that was just me spamming the arrows, you know. It was just nice to move around. It's been blessed. Yes, your game has been blessed. It's been blessed with great mechanics. That's what's been. Yeah. Anyways, I'll stop talking gibberish. Is there any social media you would like to for viewers to go to?
Everything you can reach me on is now at DiscoReptile.net.
Okay, yeah, there is a DiscoReptile website, and you have all the social media links on there. You just click and it takes you to that. Very handy, very nice. I'll probably have the social media popping on the screen now, but that's gonna happen in the YouTube edit, which you'll be able to view it on our UK Games Fund YouTube channel. Right. Anyways, exciting, super exciting. Okay, thank you so much for chatting with me. And take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.